Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another Hot Toys 1/6 scale Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness figure unboxing and review. Today we're taking a look at the deluxe version of the Scarlet Witch. Now if you are heading down to the description, why not hit that subscribe, bell notification icon and join button, so you're notified as soon as a brand new Hot Toys Marvel figure review goes live on the channel. As for the box art, right off the bat, this box is bloody massive. I wouldn't be surprised if you go for the standard one if she comes in a normal Hot Toys sized box. Up front, we have an image of Elizabeth Olsen in costume, not the actual figure unfortunately. A couple more shots in the background, as well as some screenshots from the movie in these little glass shards. This one, for me, hurts the most because that's the Illuminati, and unfortunately, at the time of filming this video, Hot Toys have decided not to make any of those characters. Down below, we have Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and her name. Pretty much the entire box is covered in this almost rubberized coating. It feels great, but it's also a fingerprint magnet. Whereas all of the artwork in the foreground, such as the little speckles around the side here and the cracked shards of the multiverse, all of that is done in a metallic finish. So it does pop against the satin for the rest of the artwork. And then around the back, yes, we do have warnings and legal information right down the middle and this spell-looking thing in the background. But what the hell is all this stuff? I guess it's just generic magical smoke effects, perhaps. I do like the color scheme, though. The red blending into the purple, perfect for Scarlet Witch. There's also just one more little cracked shard of the multiverse down below with an image of Scarlet Witch inside. Okay, that was a right pain in the ass, trying to remove the internal box from the slipcover. I don't know why it was such a challenge, but this just didn't want to come out, so maybe don't spend a ton of time wrangling yours because you've seen it now. It's not all that exciting. It's an open window showcasing Scarlet Witch and her accessories inside. Yes, there is a little bit of artwork around the back. We've got 3 images of Scarlet Witch, some lens flares, and some blue smoke in the background. But I don't think it's worth the hassle fighting the slipcover just to see this piece of artwork. Entirely up to you though. If you do want to sit there fighting the box, go for it. I'm sorry, I don't mean to sound grouchy. I am genuinely excited to get this figure out here. I'm a Scarlet Witch fan. Now, in the preview video, I said that I probably wasn't going to opt for the deluxe version. What made me change my tune? Well, it turns out they upgraded the little base piece that she sits on from cardboard to actual plastic. So that's what tipped me over the edge and hence why I decided to get the deluxe one. First in-hand impressions. So far so good. What we are going to do now though is get all of her accessories laid out in the light box and take a closer look at everything she comes with. Starting off with the display base first. Like I said in the unboxing segment, I ended up going against my own better judgment and opting for the deluxe version. I kinda wish I hadn't though, because what the fuck is this? This is the single worst diorama display base that I have ever seen from any company. Up top, this is all foam-backed cardboard, and the printing is blurry. How do you have blurry printing on a display base that you designed for a high-end figure? I just don't understand. The bottom part feels like clamshell flimsy plastic, like a takeaway pizza tray, and the candles are completely free-floating and they disconnect constantly. Not to mention they don't look very realistic. They come across as though they're cartoony Pixar candles. The only saving grace with them is that they've got the dripping wax effect, and some shading around the top, plus the flames are translucent plastic. Then we get to this monstrosity. How do you look at this bracket piece and decide, yeah, that looks good enough. This is truly a deluxe upgrade. People are going to pick this up over the standard display base. It's not sculpted plastic, the printing is blurry, the candles look cheap, and we've got that thing around the back. Unfortunately, we're not done with the display base. We still have to discuss the flight pole. It's translucent plastic. It's not capped on either end, so it feels very unfinished with this open hole up the top or the bottom. We've got this spring-loaded waist clamp. I would suggest not using this because this will do irreversible damage to Scarlet Witch's suit. And up top, we've got this Multiverse Dreamwalking Effect. This I do actually like. Somehow, some way, I'm going to figure out how to use this just with a normal display base. You've got some darker shading on the orbs, and this little arm that connects to it, it's removable, that can hold the Darkhold. It seems Hot Toys just don't understand anymore. Back in the day, if they gave us a diorama display base like with their Superman figure, for example, we also got the standard frickin' display base. Hot Toys. If we are opting for a deluxe version of a character, we should also get everything that we get with the standard one. There shouldn't be any standard exclusive accessories. We're paying more for the deluxe. Give us both display bases. Quit being stingy. Now, we do get these interchangeable skirt pieces made of this rubbery translucent plastic, and I will show you what she looks like wearing the standard skirt pieces and these ones a little bit later. The same thing goes for the rubbery plastic hair pieces. We do get two options, windswept and normal. We'll try them both out. I think these are the same flame effect pieces that we've received with every single Scarlet Witch at this point. They are cast in translucent red plastic, yet somehow they look worse than the effect pieces that came with the WandaVision version. The WandaVision ones are translucent but glossy, whereas the Multiverse ones have this almost cloudy, dirty looking effect to them. Maybe that's what they were going for because this is a more evil version of Wanda, but for me, I prefer the way the WandaVision ones look. With that being said, I'm never going to use the flame effects with this Wanda. I'm going for the brand new, much smaller effect pieces. They feel a little bit delicate. These pieces that stick out off the main central ball come across as though they're made of a slightly flimsier plastic. So do be careful when you're trying to wedge these into her hands. You all know I love my 1/6 scale printed books, and the Darkhold is no exception. We've got a unique cover front and back, the spine is even sculpted plastic, and it looks like it's melting and decaying around the front with these little pieces dripping down. Then for the inside, we've got some fully printed pages with this dirt and grime effect over the top. The middle pages are unique compared to the rest of them, and I think these are the ones you're supposed to have on display when you wedge the Darkhold into the effect piece on the display base. And lastly, just a whole bunch of hands with a ton of different gestures. They're also super detailed. We've got some sculpt work for the palms, texture for the sleeve that wraps around her thumb, and the darker shading on her fingertips to make it look like she's being corrupted by the Darkhold. So we do get those magic spell hands, then we also get a second set that looks slightly different. Another set with her fingers curled in. These are more like semi-gripping open palm hands. That's also how I would describe these ones. The gestures are quite similar between the different sets. Except for these ones, these are just the relaxed open palm hands that come installed on her out of the box. What we are going to do now, though, is get Wanda herself out here. Standing straight up and down in the light box, no crazy poses, or accessories, or anything like that. It's not very often that we get two arguably definitive looks for an MCU character based on two different projects that released relatively close to one another, which means we now have two arguably definitive figures of Wanda in 1/6 scale, being this one and the WandaVision version. Which leads me on to the question that I hope to answer by the end of the video. Is this the ultimate 1/6 scale Scarlet Witch figure, or is that the WandaVision one? This release does have a lot going for it. She comes with a much bigger display base if you go for the stupid deluxe one. She also has more effect pieces. Plus, the biggest one for me, no more visible joints at the shoulders, which makes this figure look way more realistic compared to WandaVision. That's the one thing, the sticking point for me, aesthetics. People collect Hot Toys for different reasons. They want crazy articulation, they want a ton of presence, or they want the most accurate and realistic looking figure of X character. I fall into that last category. So by saying this, I might be revealing my hand a little bit too early. This figure is absolutely incredible. Up close and personal, kicking things off with Wanda's head sculpt. I'm just going to come right out and say it. For me, this is undeniably the best Scarlet Witch head sculpt we've ever received from them. But it's not perfect. There's one thing that holds this sculpt back, and we'll talk about what that is in just a second. Let's talk about the good stuff first. The likeness to Elizabeth Olsen I can see from every angle. The skin texture is quite subtle, but still present. There's even some freckles on the surface. We have the dark red eyeshadow around her eyes, giving her that evil vibe. And the way they connect the hairpiece up top is pretty much seamless. You can't see a gap anywhere, even around the edges. It just blends in with the natural flow for the individual strands of hair. Speaking of which, they are made of rubbery plastic, so you shouldn't have to worry about any of this breaking. Now, the skin tone and skin texture match between the sculpt and the neck is close, but it's not 100%. The neck is slightly darker in tone and a little bit glossier. It doesn't throw off the entire thing for me, it's just something to be aware of. Now, the crown is removable, but it's made of translucent plastic, so when the light passes through it, there's this subtle red glow cast onto the sculpt, which I really do like actually. When you take this off, there are some little slots left behind that it plugs into, so I don't think you're really meant to display the figure like this. If you want to, it is an option, but these slots are always going to be visible. Now, the one thing that I alluded to that holds this sculpt back from being perfect is that she was announced at a bit of a weird time for Hot Toys. They were deciding whether or not they were going to give every figure moving eyes. They decided to do that, but Wanda was already announced at that point, and instead of going back and updating her and giving her moving eyes, they literally decided not to bother. I mean, just imagine it, giving her a bit of a head tilt, having her looking up at us through her brow, that would have made this sculpt look even more menacing. Unfortunately, we don't have moving eyes, and I won't beat a dead horse, it's still a gorgeous sculpt. It could have just been a little bit better. Now, this is her alternative hairpiece. You can use this for a dreamwalking pose, or if you want to pick up this sculpt and pop it on your WandaVision figure, then this is probably the hair you're going to want to go with. It still has the individual strands that you can adjust if you so choose. And now, because it swooshes back over her shoulders, you can see a lot more of the chest armor, and you can access the neck joint so that she can look forward a bit more. Around the back, there is still this massive chunk of sculpted hair, and it's pretty wide, so she is much more restricted looking upwards. There is a lot of flow to it, you can see some individual strands, and there's some darker shading up top for the roots. You can, once again, remove the crown. Slots are still visible, and I don't think she looks anywhere near as good without it on. Okay, back to stock. When you're installing the crown, just watch out for the little thin pieces because they're fragile, and they sit very flush against the forehead. So if you put too much pressure on them, you may scuff up the paint applications on the head sculpt. Now, luckily, this figure does have fully covered arms. Unlike the WandaVision version where, unfortunately, we had that really weird thing going on at the shoulders. She is wearing this screen-printed spandexy suit, so I would say that you probably don't want to leave her arms bent for a long period of time because the screen-printed details are rubbery, so they may stick to themselves and then tear when you try and bring the arm back down after you've left her in that pose. The chest armor is cast in translucent plastic, so you can see through it ever so slightly, and there are some little hidden Easter eggs on this piece. You do have this crack emanating from where her heart would be because of course she lost vision, and this little symbol in the shape of the Mind Stone. Those two things I didn't actually notice on screen, but thankfully people did point that stuff out afterwards. Just some light housekeeping, if you do find that the shirt rides up and exposes the wrist pegs, you can pull it back down and tuck it in underneath the hand so it sits in the channel, and now it looks entirely seamless. Her waistcoat hip skirt area thing is also made of translucent rubbery plastic, just like the chest armor. There is a lot of detail on the surface. Got texture, these cracks, and some darker airbrush shading over the translucent red. You can remove these, they're just held on with a little peg and magnets, because there are some interchangeable ones. If you do want to have her in a dreamwalking pose, or maybe just in a dynamic pose with this flexed forward, you can pop these ones on. The only complaint I have with this mechanism is that The bracket piece they slot onto is quite bulky, so they stick out pretty far from her waist, and I reckon they mess with the proportions. Down below for her skirt, it comes across as though it's very grungy and grimy. We've got this airbrush shading top and bottom, it's tattered, and there are some straight up holes through it. It's made of this quite lightweight fabric, so it drapes beautifully, but it's also wired. Only along the front and back, however. So you might struggle to get it to hold its position laterally away from her, seeing as though there aren't any wires along the bottom. I get why they couldn't, because there are tatters and holes, you cannot run the wire across that piece. Still, I would have liked some kind of horizontal wiring to make posing a bit easier. Her pants look like the WandaVision pants, just significantly dirtier and more battle damaged. All of the added striping and chevrons are now gone, and the pattern looks like it's been almost eroded and destroyed over time, as she's been reading the Darkhold perhaps. Down here for her boots, it is a split cut boot design, so we will get maximum range of motion. There's some texture up top and also on the front of the shoe, a zipper sculpted in, some wrinkling, and some stitching around the edge. There isn't, however, any sculpted tread. The underside of her boots are completely smooth. Head swap time. This is the WandaVision sculpt on the Multiverse body. Honestly, this is one of my favorite things about making figure reviews, is I get to try old head sculpts on new bodies and vice versa. I don't think this works super well. Yes, it pops on the neck connector just fine, and the skin tone match between said neck and the head is spot on. But the expression, looking much more hopeful compared to the Multiverse sculpt, doesn't sell the fact that this is evil Wanda. She looks like she's having way too much fun. The crown not being translucent plastic also now means it doesn't match the rest of her armor plating. Dude, this is perfect. Having these strands of hair sit over the top of the arm gaps on the WandaVision body. I don't think I can put this head sculpt back on the Multiverse figure. I now need to find myself a second copy of this sculpt so I can have it displayed on both figures. It just makes such a massive difference. Yes, the crown isn't accurate. Maybe if you somehow heated up the hair on the WandaVision sculpt, you'd be able to remove that crown, and then we could just install it onto this one. As it stands, that crown is glued in place, so it's not actually removable. And voila! It works. It turns out that the crown is removable if you apply a little bit of heat with a hairdryer, not too much, don't melt anything, and then some pressure up top for the crown. It popped right off the WandaVision sculpt, and the connector is the exact same between the Multiverse crown and the WandaVision one. So it slots right into this sculpt, and now in my display, this is how I'm going to have these two figures. The WandaVision sculpt on the Multiverse body with the hair swooshing back over the shoulders and the accurate crown, and then this sculpt on the WandaVision body hiding those hideous joints at the shoulders. I almost forgot to mention this because I reckon it's pretty stupid. I have no idea why Hot Toys are so obsessed with the UV light up effect. How often are you walking into your collection room, picking up a UV torch, and shining it at your figure's eyes? I'm willing to bet never. Even for figure photography, it would be easier just to Photoshop the eyes rather than correcting the blue glow that the UV torch casts on the head sculpt. Yes, it's neat just to try out once. I don't think this has any practical use. For a quick side-by-side comparison, on the left, Wanda from Multiverse of Madness, and on the right, WandaVision. You know what this tells me? There are no definitive looks for MCU characters anymore, because we literally just got the definitive Wanda figure with WandaVision, right? Wrong, because 5 minutes later, here comes an even better figure with an arguably more badass costume. And the new figure fixes most of the issues that I had with the WandaVision one. Look, at the end of the day, it's gonna come down to hero versus villain Wanda for most people. Do you want to immortalize her in your display from her own show, transforming into the Scarlet Witch for the first time? Or as the villain from Multiverse of Madness? Next up, Doctor Strange from Multiverse of Madness, who is taller than Wanda as he should be. I like the juxtaposition between their two outfits. Just based on looks alone, you can tell who's the hero and who's the villain. While this pairing totally works as a duo representing Multiverse of Madness, for my display, I have something else in mind. And that's this. Look how freaking good this looks. Dead Strange paired up alongside Multiverse of Madness Wanda. Strange is still taller, but now they look right at home standing together. They both have the darker red tones of the outfit, and Dead Strange even has the tatters on his tassels that match the tatters on Wanda's skirt. So, yeah, these two 100% going to be paired up alongside one another in my Multiverse of Madness display. While this doesn't make canonical sense because Wanda didn't look like this in WandaVision, that doesn't really matter. If you want to display Wanda alongside Vision and this is your go-to Scarlet Witch, well, now at least you know what that looks like. The longest time back when the MCU had some sort of consistency with their superhero costumes, this is what Wanda looked like from Civil War all the way through to Endgame. So that made the Civil War figure that we're looking at on the right here very, very sought after. But with Hot Toys being Hot Toys, now there's a new version coming out, a DX Artisan one from Endgame. This is the 1.0, and as you can see, she's a little bit shorter than Multiverse Wanda. I'm okay with that because Wanda was relatively young in Age of Ultron and the earlier films. As stupid as it sounds, maybe when she read the Darkhold and got all evil, she also got taller. Going over Wanda's articulation, starting off with her head sculpt. Now, the way the hair is done, being plastic and how it sits over the front of the shoulders, and there's this mass of sculpted hair around the back, it is going to be more restricted. If you switch out the front piece for this one, then yeah, you will get a little bit more range. There is a double ball peg up underneath the sculpt, and the neck is rubbery, so it's a little bit flexible. Looking forward to there, looking up to there, swivel and pivot side to side. The hair does split over the top of the shoulders, so her arms can go up to there. Going forward and back, there's a butterfly joint at the shoulder that hinges up and down. Swivel at the bicep, double bend at the elbow going past 90. Then for the wrist peg, it's a hinge and swivel. The outfit is mostly fabric, except for this center portion that is sculpted plastic. So her torso crunches forward to there, going back to there, swivel and pivot side to side. The skirt pieces are made of plastic too, and they hang down over her legs. So they may collide with the thighs, but they're flexible enough they move out of the way a little. Going forward to there, going out to there, swivel at the upper thigh. Double bend at the knee going past 90. And then for the ankles, yes, it's a split cut boot design, so I'm happy about that. But it's not a double ball peg, it's a hinge and swivel, which means it's good for forward and back and swivel. But if you want ankle tilt, you have to rotate the joint inside the boot and then it'll go side to side. Moving on to the 3 cool and 3 annoying things. The first annoying thing is this awful, sorry excuse for a diorama display base. Construction-wise, it truly is disgraceful. The top part is foam-backed printed cardboard and the print is a little bit blurry. Then the underside is just clamshell plastic. This clear plastic thing looks awful, and the candles are completely free-floating. If you just look at them the wrong way, they're going to go flying and move out of position and look terrible. The only saving grace with this display base is you don't have to get it. If you opt for the standard version, you're going to get a proper display base, not this piece of crap. The second annoying thing is, yeah, I guess it's cool to have swap out skirt pieces when they don't come at the cost of aesthetics. Having to have this bracket piece that the skirt pieces snap onto just bulks her out way too much at the hips. The third annoying thing is this head sculpt was so close to being perfect. The only thing it's missing for me is moving eyes. The first cool thing is these are some of the most detailed hands I've ever seen in 1/6 scale. The black shading for the fingers, the skin texture, and the shading on the knuckles just helps these look super realistic. The second cool thing is the way they've blended in the seams for the hair pieces so it looks pretty much entirely seamless. The tolerances are so tight that if you weren't looking for the gaps, I don't think you'd know that these hair pieces were detachable. Yes, the crown does have those little slots. I don't think that's a massive deal when you plug it all on. it looks like this is how the sculpt came out of the box. Having the ability to switch between the two hair pieces, I love that. The third cool thing has to be the new effect pieces, specifically the one that's meant to hold the Darkhold. For the longest time, we got the same Scarlet Witch effect pieces with every single release. We still get those with this figure, but we also get some new ones. Wrapping up on the Hot Toys Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, Scarlet Witch. This figure is very close to being perfect. There are a couple of things that do kind of bug me though. Number one, she doesn't have moving eyes. Huge missed opportunity. Number two, there was no rooted hair version. And number three, the biggest one, she has that stupid, awful, cheap feeling diorama display base with the deluxe version. It almost feels like they're punishing you for going with the deluxe. Every time you have two versions Hot Toys, the deluxe one needs to come with everything the standard one has. It makes no sense to me that there is a standard exclusive display base. The deluxe one has to have both bases. But with that being said, this is still my favorite 1/6 scale Scarlet Witch. Even more so than the WandaVision one, which was my previous favorite before the filming of this video. I will be switching the head sculpts around. That's just to make the WandaVision one look better. It has nothing to do with this figure. So, at the end of this, do I recommend her? Well, that actually depends. If you want to immortalize the villain Wanda, then yeah, absolutely, go for it. Pick this one up. This can be your one and only evil Wanda. But if you want to have the hero version of Wanda, maybe this one isn't for you. If you don't care about any of that, you just want the best looking Scarlet Witch, go ahead and grab her. But I would recommend getting the standard version over the deluxe. Save yourself the hassle of trying to work with that terrible diorama display base. If you are heading down to the description, why not hit that subscribe, bell notification icon, and join button, if you like the sound of seeing your name in the end credits of my reviews. Like, comment, and subscribe. We'll catch you in the next video.